The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
She's back, Gavin's mom, that is, with tales of mystery men, divine intervention, and a one-way ticket to Brazil. Hello, I'm James Curtis, and welcome to E's coverage of the Michael Jackson trial. This is how the day started in Santa Maria, California. First, cheering fans made Jackson's arrival seem like a stroll up the red carpet. Then it looked a little like a perp walk, but actually this is the accuser's mother entering the courtroom, a blue coat shielding her face from prying TV cameras. Once inside the courtroom, though, it got serious. Assistant District Attorney Ron Zonin got right down to business, questioning the accuser's mother about a disturbing conversation she had with one of Michael Jackson's associates, Frank Tyson. Here's what the jurors heard according to the courtroom transcripts.
Tell us about the conversation that you had with Frank about the rebuttal video.
Okay.
And specifically in time after you had learned that there was going to be an interview with your children with DCFS.
First, he had told me no, that he wasn't going to bring the two kids back. It evolved, and that made me very stressed. And then he says the only way they'll bring back the kids if I do the video. And then it evolved into that I wouldn't have to leave the country.
You were already having conversations with Frank about leaving the country?
Oh, yeah. That had been since...
And had the location of where you were supposed to go already been resolved?
Yes, Brazil.
Brazil. All right. You then went back to Neverland, you've already described. And then you turned around and went back to Los Angeles. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let's start with Frank. Tell us what exactly it was that Frank wanted you to say in this video.
What I got in trouble for, or what I actually ended up saying?
No. Tell us in advance of doing this video. What was it that Frank wanted you to say on this video?
That he's a wonderful father.
Did he use the word father?
Yes. Basically, in summary, that he's a wonderful father.
Now, in regard to his own children or in regards to your children?
To my children.
Did you feel that that statement was accurate?
I was confused. I was confused and I was sad at that moment.
What was your confusion?
Well, because as things evolved, I ended up finding out who were the bad guys.
Next, the witness gets a bad review.
What did Vinny say to you?
That I had not done an adequate job on the video, and we were going to have to proceed with leaving out of the country.
Is this the first time that anybody talked to you about your performance or the performance of the children in the rebuttal video?
Yes, it was Vinny.
And he said it wasn't adequate?
That's right.
Did he give you any specifics as to what was not adequate in this interview?
Yeah, that I was supposed to stick strictly to the script. I went out of the things I got in trouble for because of God, the child welfare services thing, and Gavin's cancer.
Let's go back. These are things that Vinny specifically told you?
Yes.
Let's start with the first one. What did he say about references to God?
Okay, I was supposed to say that Michael healed Gavin.
And did you not say that?
I did not say it exactly like they wanted me to. Instead, I said, Dieter had also presented to me to say, via God's grace. Because I was no, it's God who healed Gavin and not Michael healed Gavin. God did. And so then I was supposed to say that sentence plus them.
Okay, another program note, folks. Vinny Amon is one of Michael Jackson's associates, or at least was back then, as was Dieter Wiesner. They're unindicted co-conspirators as well. And I know we've all got a lot to say about this tape, about this testimony, rather. And let me say about the tape, the rebuttal video that I saw to kick us off here. It doesn't look like or sound like any coercion's going on, and you can hear the direction from off camera saying, we want you to talk about this, we want you to talk about that. Didn't sound coercive to me. Who wants to start?
Do you think the DA's office is going to send her out of the country if she does an inadequate job testifying in this matter?
Well, the DA's office isn't on trial here, we have to remember.
Well, but is it, though? That's really the question.
I happen to not agree with you. I think the DA's office, in effect, is in trial because it's all about their presentation and their credibility and what they believe the truth is. And I think the presentation here is so disjointed and hard to follow.
It is. This particular witness, we can say that she's, I would say, wacky, somewhat wacky. And so,
or loopy, as the term was coined by Ricky yesterday.
As we said yesterday. Her perception may be that she was falsely imprisoned, but that doesn't mean it's so. it just appears that her perception of things, not just that, but of all sorts of things, is not necessarily what we as reasonable people would perceive. And that may be where this comes down. She thinks it, but it's not necessarily that they intended to falsely imprison her or these kids.
That may be so, and I know we have to look at other testimony, but we have to remember there's a lot of corroboration here for the prosecutor of her testimony.
Well,
but
it gets back. Hold that thought, Sean. Hold that thought. We'll continue that discussion. We got so much to talk about, folks, and so little time. As the testimony continues, it looks like Gavin's mom is heading down to Rio, whether she likes it or not. Another programming note. Jay is Major Dad. His name is Jay Jackson. He's the Army Reserve Major, and he is the current husband of the accuser's mom.
Who was it who told you you're going to Brazil now?
Frank, Vinny.
What did you tell them in response to whether or not you wanted to go to Brazil?
They knew I didn't want to go.
Did you tell them that?
Yes, I did.
Tell us why you didn't want to go.
I didn't want to go because first and main reason is Gavin's doctor is here. He has to see an oncologist and a nephrologist. He depends on those doctors first. And second, I waited a lifetime to find someone I could give a Valentine to, and that was Jay.
Okay. Why did you ultimately agree to go? I mean, why not just say, I'm not going?
Because of my parents' life, and Jay's life.
What does that mean? Your parents' life and Jay's life?
Well,
what did that have to do with going to Brazil?
That they were going to be killed.
Who told you that?
Frank. Frank became the worst out of all of them.
Did you believe at that time that you were actually going to go to Brazil?
Yes. And this is the period when I called Louise Palanker.
You called her from the hotel in Calabasas?
No, I didn't. I don't know where I was. I don't know where I was, but I called her during this period that I can remember clear.
All right. Who was at the hotel during this 5-day period other than you and your 3 children?
Frank, Vinny, Johnny, another guy that I never saw that always would stand outside my window, and then these other people that I never came to find out who they were.
All right, next, trying to send a secret message when everyone is listening. Hate when that happens. A program note, the woman Aja, the name you'll hear mentioned, was comedian Chris Tucker's girlfriend at the time.
During this period of time, did you have telephone calls with anybody else?
Me?
Yes.
But my phone calls were being monitored and listened to.
Well, somebody told you that?
Yes.
Who?
Frank and Vinny.
Did you believe that to be true?
Yes, I did believe them.
Notwithstanding that belief, did you make phone calls from the hotel?
Yes, I did. What I did, I tried to drop clues to every person. I figured by all this was going to be resolved by God's miracles. And I figured one day there will be one day that all these people could give clues as to when me and my children would have disappeared. Clues, and this way, this puzzle would have been put together.
Who did you call during that period of time when you were at the hotel?
I called my mom, but I tried to whisper to her in Spanish, and she said "K," and
Your mom's a little hard of hearing, isn't she?
Yes, so that didn't help me.
Did you call the police during that time?
No.
Why not?
Because my calls are being monitored, they're being listened to, my parents are in danger, Jay's in danger, and who could possibly believe this?
What do you mean by who could possibly believe it? What was your concern in that regard?
That nobody would believe me, and that's because Frank said nobody would believe me.
Did you, in your conversation with Jay from the hotel, tell him what was going on?
No.
Did you tell him you were going to Brazil?
I told him the same way I tried to talk to Aja. Everything was always broken. It was never complete. So in the midst of a regular conversation, I'd throw something in hoping that it hadn't been heard, and yet that that part could stick in somebody's mind, and hopefully one of these days this puzzle could be put together. I tried.
You know, I would think, Sean Chapman-Holly, that Spanish around non-Spanish speakers is the perfect code language.
You would think that would be the perfect code
Or any
language.
phone language for
yeah,
that matter.
But here's what I was saying before. I mean, she thinks that these forces are out to kill them, and people are listening, and the trip to Brazil is a one-way ticket to Brazil. They're not coming back. That's my point. This may exist in her mind, but the real question is, did this exist in the minds of Michael Jackson and the co-conspirators? And I say probably not.
Let me go back to the corroboration. They have the passport applications that were not done in her handwriting. They're done in the handwriting of Michael Jackson's people. They have the Frank Tyson phone call that is on tape. They have the video surveillance, including the moving out, taking all of their furniture out of the apartment. She may be loopy and may be presuming they're falsely imprisoning her, but there's a lot of other real stuff that supports their claim.
But, sorry, we got to get back to this, but, Sean Chapman Holly will get to continue that thought. Does that hard evidence corroboration mean what this woman purports it to mean? When we return, did the kids get out of control or fall under the control of a superstar who was in reality a super predator? Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Under further questioning by Assistant District Attorney Ron Zonin, Gavin's mom describes how she no longer felt she had any influence over her children's behavior as they fell under the spell of the King of Pop. Here's what the jurors heard according to the courtroom transcripts.
Where were your boys during this time, from the 2nd to the 10th?
From the 2nd to the 10th, they were with Michael. This time I did see him.
Could you tell if he was there the entire time, from the 2nd?
Oh, yes.
Who are we talking about now?
Yes, because I'd see him. They're running around with my kids like crazy nuts, you know.
All right, wait. You said him. Who is him?
Mr. Jackson.
All right. And they were running with him. Who are they?
My boys.
Like nuts. Explain that to me. What does that mean?
Yeah, I could see through my window at a distance. I know they're my kids, but they're this little. When you see someone really far, they're about this little. And I see him this much bigger. It's clearly them. They're riding around on a go-kart, and goodness gracious.
Was there something about your boys' behavior at that time that was alarming to you?
Objection, leading.
No guidelines.
Just a minute. Overruled. You may answer.
No guidelines.
What does that mean? No guidelines?
There's no guidelines. That's it. I've lost my kids.
So like no guidelines to this witness's testimony, but that's another issue. Now, we might rely on our dentist, but is a dentist the right person to turn to if you're being held against your will?
At some point in time, did your children visit a dentist while they were at Neverland?
Yes.
For what purpose?
Remember how I told you I kept trying to do things, Mr. Zonin, about ways of getting out of there? And so I had told them that if I didn't get the orthodontist's teeth braces removed, that the social workers were going to call the police. And originally, Ronald and Dieter, when the Germans were involved, they had said that it was bad PR for the police to get involved for Mr. Jackson. So I used that, and I told them they were going. If I didn't get the braces removed, that they were going to call the social workers.
All right.
So I used that because what I was trying to do was go to my orthodontist. So this way, it was someone I knew that could possibly believe me.
All right. Now, whose idea was it to go to a different orthodontist?
Their idea.
And did you, in fact, go to a different orthodontist?
Yes, and get this. After the orthodontist was closed, no other patient was there. It was after hours, and with that scary guy, Joe, and being put on notice that I was being listened and monitored. So again, the mother, failed again.
Howard?
Well, I think she had the right question asked in the earlier segment we saw. Who could possibly believe this? And I don't know. I'm watching this and I'm thinking, wait a minute. Is it Fantasyland? Neverland? Where is this woman?
Well, but does that mean she's not accurate in what she's saying, though, even if she is loopy or out there or whatever adjective we want to
give her? It doesn't. She could, of course, be telling the truth. But the jurors don't know her. They have to assess her credibility and using common sense. And she doesn't appear to be credible because, yes, it's like Fantasyland. What is this woman perceiving?
But there's that corroboration
wait. There's corroboration, and I think we have to at least listen to the words of some of the reporters who I consider reputable in this case. And almost to a person, they said on day one, she was, to use my word, loopy. I mean, she was just so out there, and jurors were looking the other way, shaking their heads, rolling their eyes. But on day two, almost to a person, they said the jurors were intent, they were listening, they were watching, they were serious. So there may have been a real change in her demeanor.
Here's the key here, though. It doesn't matter, as Sean said earlier, what is in this lady's mind. What matters is what the intentions were of Michael Jackson and or the people working with him.
Yeah.
Did they intend to keep her sequestered?
And more pointed, is there a connection between the conduct of Michael Jackson's associates, now unindicted co-conspirators, and Michael Jackson himself? As Gavin's mom continues, she testifies that not everyone was really all that happy about the family's eventual escape from Neverland.
All right. At the time you got to your parents' house, who is present? Who was there?
My mom and dad and my 3 children.
How were your children behaving at that time? Let me be more specific. How was Gavin behaving at the time you got there?
They were not my kids anymore.
Well, describe Gavin's behavior specifically. How was he behaving?
He didn't want to talk to Jay.
We're talking about Gavin right now.
Yeah.
Describe Gavin's behavior specifically.
Angry, violent. Yeah.
Did you tell him that he was not going back to Neverland?
Yeah.
And you say angry and violent. What do you mean? Describe what he was doing or what he was saying.
Just hollering, telling me that, yelling at me at the top of his lungs that Michael loves him and that he had to go back.
Next, Mom says she finally found out about the Neverland Jesus juice.
Gavin did have a conversation with you.
No, it wasn't a conversation. It was like an erupted volcano.
Hold on. At some point in time, did you actually sit down with Gavin and have a conversation with him about what took place at Neverland?
No, it was always broken, always.
At some point in time, did you sit down and have a conversation with Star about what happened at Neverland?
He, too, it was always broken. I would always hush them up. I'd say, just forget, forgive, forget, forgive, forget.
Did you have any belief at the time you went to Mr. Feldman that either of your boys had been molested?
No, not molested, but I was aware of things.
Move to strike the comments.
Strike the last sentence.
Did you go to Mr. Feldman because you believed your children were molested?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
My children, Gavin was like an erupted volcano. All the different things.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained. Stricken.
Well, that's my answer.
Let me withdraw the question and let me ask it again.
Okay.
Why did you go to Mr. Feldman?
Because as time progressed, I was finding out more and more. I thought it was just alcohol.
Were you concerned about the fact that your child had been given alcohol?
Yes.
That was something.
That was enough for me.
Ricky?
Well, there is a problem here with this witness, but the reality is this. I think we always have to go back to 2 factors. One is she is damaged goods. We know she is. She's been abused according to her story since she was married to, as we call him, the bad dad, David. She is someone who has lived a very difficult life. If we believe her, she's been a battered woman. That's what the children say. Gavin, on the other hand, is not her. And we do know that when Gavin had leukemia, that Gavin was someone that people gathered around. And we also know that when she enrolled Gavin in those tap dancing schools, those acting schools, this comedy club, that people gravitated toward him. They thought he was a very special kid.
But can you take away very quickly, Sean?
As I said last week, no, you're right. Gavin is not her, but Gavin is influenced by her. And that's another important reason to see this woman on the stand. She has an influence over Gavin, the accuser.
And was Gavin, the accuser, molested, or was he molested before or after these false imprisonment charges arose? When we return, was the day she left for Neverland also payday for this witness?
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Assistant District Attorney Ron Zonin makes it plain. Did the accuser's mom put a price tag on her experiences with Michael Jackson? Here's what she told the jury, according to the courtroom transcripts.
During the period of time, from the time that you were contacted by Michael Jackson back in early February of '03 to the time that you left Neverland and your children left Neverland on around the 11th of March, did you ever ask anybody from Neverland, whether it was Michael Jackson or Vinny or Frank, for money?
No. 0.
Did you ever ask any of them for money prior to that time on February 4th?
That's not my nature.
Did either or any of them at Neverland make an offer to give you money?
No.
Did you receive money from any of them?
Nope.
And by receiving money, I mean at any time since you first visited Neverland back in August of 2000 until you ultimately left and had no further communication with them?
No.
Did you ever have a conversation with anybody at Neverland, whether it was Michael Jackson or Vinny or Frank or anybody else, about the subject of whether money would be given to you?
No.
Did you ever ask anybody at Neverland, whether it was Michael Jackson or anybody else, to support you for the rest of your life?
No.
All right, before we get to the final thoughts as we wrap this up, I find it really interesting, Ricky Kleeman, defend the prosecution on this point. Pretty please, and then I'm going to make Sean do it.
I'm happy to do so.
Everybody seems to have the same set of problems. One, nobody thinks they will be believed, these prior accusers.
Sure.
Nobody thinks that it's a good idea to go to the police or to social services. Everybody thinks that taking money is okay, and my personal pet peeve and favorite, nobody is trying to punch Michael Jackson in the face for molesting their kid.
Well, okay, I'll defend the prosecution on those points easily. First of all, we are surprised in life that vigilantism does not go on. People don't go out there and kill child molesters. It just doesn't happen.
Don't say kill, just punch them.
All right, punch child molesters. Secondly, when you get back to your other factors, you have incidents that are 10 to 12 years apart. Let's call it 10 years apart for the sake of argument. People do think they won't be believed. People do think if they say that Michael Jackson is molesting my child or that his friends are imprisoning me, they're afraid.
The question everybody has is, why wouldn't you go to the police?
Yeah.
And the only answer they could come up with is, nobody would believe me. And I don't think that's believable.
Well,
if you're in danger or you think your child's being molested, it doesn't matter who believes you or not. You're telling the police, you're telling somebody.
That's right. Or you don't believe it, or you don't think it's going on. Two things that I think were very interesting in the testimony. One, it's clear Michael Jackson acted and played like a kid in a lot of her observations, consistent with what everybody has said, running around in the yard, jumping around, playing games, and by the way, inconsistent with molesting children. Yeah. Secondly, forgive, forget, try again, as I said earlier. The prosecution continues to attempt to mold this lady's testimony.
Yeah, leave it right there. Leave the molding right there. Is it working? Be sure to watch our wrap-up show, The Weekend Show, 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. right here on E! See ya.